What happens when you don't know? What happens when you just have to feel and you have to just connect and trust? Relationships are the most important thing to women, but relationships are not the first most important thing for men. If those are the three things that a man is looking for, then what are the three things that a woman is looking for? The more a woman wants to control, the more a man is not interested because Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host Anya Shack here, and today I want to get into a conversation about womanhood. What is the purpose of womanhood, right? We talk about masculinity and manhood a lot, and this conversation is in parallel to that one, and it also gets to be had. It's a big conversation, so I'm going to take a little bite out of it today and just flow. We'll see how far I get. I've got quotes, I've got books, some different things. So it's going to be more of like a co-creative bit of a session type of episode. So we'll see. Let's do it. Before I jump in, reminder, I have 2 spots to start working with me in November. So if you are looking for coaching, please, there's a link down below, book a free discovery call, and I will be looking forward to meeting you. Okay, let's dive in. So womanhood. When I think about womanhood, one of the first things that I want to understand is like, what are the things that a woman is really searching for? And this brings me back to Stasi Eldridge's book, Captivating, where she talks about the 3 things that a woman longs for. And it goes hand in hand with the 3 things that a man longs for that John Eldridge talks about in his book, Wild at Heart. And so the 3 things that a man longs for, right? A battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. These are, core soul desires. And the other thing I want to mention here is, I love evolutionary psychology, and I think there's so much like nerding out to do within evolutionary psychology around sex differences and behavior and all of that. And I love to do that. And I will do that in other episodes. But this episode is going to be more of a soulful take of what is kind of in the hearts and souls and minds of men and women. And there's a big conversation I've been having about what womanhood actually means and how woman inspires and uplifts and encourages man, and where does that come from and why is it so missing today, right? So I want to talk about that. But to get into this right away, if those are the 3 things that a man is looking for, then what are the 3 things that a woman is looking for? Well, it's to be romanced, to play an irreplaceable role in a great adventure, and it's to unveil her beauty. Those 3 things go hand in hand with the three things that a man desires. So she wants to play an irreplaceable role in a great adventure. And what this tells us, in contrast with a man's desire to live an adventure, to fight a battle, and to rescue a beauty, is that deep, deep, deep down, she wants to find herself fitting into a man's life, a man's vision, right? And one of the most important things that we always talk about in polarity conversations and masculine feminine is that relationships are the most important thing to women, but relationships are not the first most important thing for men, right? His battle to fight, his purpose, like the thing he wants to master is the most important thing. And so when he's on that mission and on that path, that's when she kind of finds herself saying, okay, yeah, like I want to be a part of that adventure, right? I want to offer myself up and utilize all of my intelligence, creativity, beauty, all of the things that are innate to me to then kind of support him and be a part of this great adventure with him, right? Be the Bonnie to his Clyde, right? And so I think that's really important. Now, that point about a woman wanting to unveil her beauty, that's where one of the biggest pain points that exists for women in general within like being hurt, the pains that women go through, especially in childhood and attachment wounds, is this belief that gets created that they are not beautiful, they are not worthwhile, they are not enough, and a man won't rescue them, right? They won't be good enough for him to rescue her. And so what ends up happening with that entire journey is trying to get needs met and trying to find ways to control and coerce and get those needs met in ways that are just not conducive to the deep yearning in her soul. And so what that ends up doing is that it hurts her more, and then it actually doesn't inspire him to live his greatest adventure and to be the best, to effectively play out his hero's journey to the fullest degree. So one of the most important points about womanhood and what does it actually even mean to be a woman? It revolves around this comfort with uncertainty and mystery. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I think it's really important. So one of the ways that we crush womanhood these days and don't leave space for women to really become the types of women that men are inspired by and excited about and want to fight battles for, right, is we don't leave space for women to connect to the unknown, the mysterious. And ultimately, a woman, I would say, like I've had these beautiful conversations over the last couple weeks, she's incomplete if she doesn't have a really solid, grounded relationship with uncertainty. If you think about it, a woman's entire initiation through her life in the 3 different initiatory periods that she biologically gets, that are, kind of she experiences, right? First, we have menstruation. That's when she goes from child to maiden. Then we have pregnancy, childbirth, probably the biggest initiation that exists for a woman. She goes from maiden to mother. And then the final initiation, when she goes through menopause, she goes from mother to elder, crone, or wise woman. And it's interesting how biology has given women these things. Men have to go through their 4 rites of passage as well. They go from boy to warrior to father to elder, but they need to create man-made rites of passage for themselves. There's no other way around it. And societies have known this since the beginning of time, that if they don't do this, men don't graduate into the next phase of their life. Whereas for women, it's quite biological. But the reality about this biology is that it comes with the spiritual, and it comes with something that's so important and profound. It's the ability to be with the spirit of uncertainty. And when we think about men and women and the primal and the divine, we can really separate it that way. Of course, every single human being has both primal and divine inside of them, of course. But when we think about the archetype, right, the representation, man is the representation of the conscious, the external world, life. What is happening on this planet in this life? What can be done, right? Whereas woman is the representation of the mystery, the great uncertainty, what's beyond, the spirit. And it's really profound. What have we done in the Western world? We've cut women off from this completely. One of the things that we were talking about in one of my women's circles was this woman who became pregnant, and she decided that she was going to never have a scan, never see a doctor. She was just going to do a complete and total free birth, home birth. And for her, it was important to have that initiation. What happens when you don't know? What happens when you just have to feel and you have to just connect and trust? What happens when you can't go get an X-ray scan? What happens when you can't ask that person and they'll tell you the answer? What happens when you sit with the unknown? And I've been reading this beautiful book, Things Hidden by Richard Rohr. I adore Richard Rohr. I think he's wonderful. It's a great thing I'm going to read from here. So, our temptation now and always is not to trust in God, but to trust in our faith tradition. They're not the same thing. Often we talk about our past saints and theologians that have trusted in God, and we say, oh yeah, that's the answer to that. That's the answer to that. That's the answer to that. That's a very clever way to avoid the experience itself. to avoid scary encounters with the living God, to avoid the ongoing incarnation. So I must say I love tradition, but it's actually the tradition of surrender that is faith. We call this the apophatic tradition or the cloud of unknowing. That's the concept of faith, the freedom not to know because I am known more fully than I know or even need to know. When a woman understands that she has depth and power and beauty, she is then free not to try to find answers, try to control, try to manipulate, right? She gets to listen and she gets to sit in the depth of what isn't clear, what isn't true. And that's actually a female initiation in and of itself, right? This spirit of the unknowing. How can we do that? When it comes to even before pregnancy, menstrual cycles, for women dealing with the women that are quite in tune and haven't taken any kinds of hormonal birth control or haven't taken any kinds of medicine and pharma and drugs and all of that, they're really in tune with their body. They can feel things in ways that are really profound to the point where they can feel the grief of, I've had this is a very tender topic, of course, but I've had this conversation with a few close women in my life, in that there's a real grieving right before the end of the menstrual cycle because there could have been a life created and now it hadn't been, right? And that's something that a woman could potentially go through every single month of her life. And for her to allow that, for her to hold that, be with the unknown, be with the messages and the wisdom that she's getting from that which is not conscious, that which is not here on this planet, and trust in that. That's actually the foundation for womanhood. Trust in that, trust in her ability to be with things, to hold things, to move through things. And that is something that a woman teaches a man to be able to hold. If she can hold her own grief in that way, then she can support him with his, right? She can hold difficult emotions. She can help him with his. Isn't that the whole thing? Like a man really protects a woman's outer world and a woman really protects his inner world. That's the whole purpose. And so when she's tuned in, she's really sure about her worth in this life and what she's capable of and how her desires and the things she loves and her family and all that she's learned and all the wisdom she has is kind of irreplaceable. And it's this beautiful gift that she can give a man in the adventure that he wants to live, right? She as his partner in that great adventure that she gets to kind of jump on the shotgun seat with him and provide all of that and support with all of that. That's the purpose here. That's the beauty. But so many women are like trying to go on their own adventures, pretending like that's what they want when deep down that's not actually what a woman wants. And there's also this little piece around responsibility and how when a woman is deeply tuned into uncertainty and mystery and she's okay with it, she can trust that the man for her will be there for her, right? She doesn't have to manipulate or coerce or try to control. She's just quite free and she's open for the right person to come in. And then she also stays strong to her desire, right? And to her knowing of what she's looking for and what she's interested in and what's going to be in perfect partnership with her. And say no to what's not that. So what I'm talking about here, this is really interesting. So woman is Eros and man is Logos, right? And so if you think about it, the more control and obsessiveness there is, the less Eros and eroticism there is, right? It makes sense that the more a woman wants to control, the more a man is not interested because he's also looking for freedom. He's searching for this deep freedom. And the more control there is, the less freedom there is. The more she is comfortable with uncertainty and the mystery of it all, the more she trusts that what is right for her will come to her, the more freedom he has in his life and the more inspired and encouraged he is to go after what he wants. And I also think there's a really beautiful, it's just making me think of it right now. The movie Pretty Woman. Do y'all remember, this movie, there's so much that can be said about this movie, but what I want to clue in on is the very end. You know, he offered her he is the big billionaire guy and she was the prostitute and they fell in love and he offered her this, uh, I'll pay for your apartment and I'll come into town and you'll be taken care of. And like the knowing deep inside of her, right? Her worth. And just in that moment, she said, no, I'm looking for the white knight, my white knight. I'm looking for my prince in shining armor. Like I'm not interested in anything that's not that. And it encouraged, this is a fairy tale, you guys. So grain of salt, okay, please. It encouraged him to decide, did he want to take responsibility here? Was he so enlivened and inspired and supported and nurtured and just held by this woman? And his inner world was fully held. He got to experience life in a way that he never had before. And that's what it is to really know a woman that trusts, that is grounded, that is nurturing and supportive. She uplifts. And when she's not looking to control, she is just sturdy and grounded in her desires and her intuition, then he can then spring up and take responsibility for showing up and doing the thing that John Eldredge says is the third thing that every man wants to rescue a beauty. There's no such thing as a beauty who's also a controlling beauty, right? She's a beauty because she's alluring in that she trusts God, she trusts life, she trusts the uncertain. And the beauty in that for in this movie, right? When she was very happy and welcome. She wouldn't have been happy about it. Obviously, she would have been sad and hurt if he said no. But if he said no, then that would be fine. Then that would mean that this is not the right man, right? And so many women these days are just in their desire to control and manipulate and not say too much and not say the wrong thing and try to hold on and try to get men to do what they want them to do. It backfires, right? It does the exact opposite thing. It demotivates men. It makes men say, it's very constricting over there in that space. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't feel uplifted or inspired or encouraged, right? And so it's really interesting how a woman's relationship with uncertainty and mystery is the catalyst for all of that. And so I think that's really beautiful. So there's a line from one of my feminine embodiment teachers. Her name is Jillian Pothier. I say her name all the time. She has a great quote. What he chooses to give to me or not give to me is equally his she separates the word provision. So it's like a woman that's truly deeply connected to this spirit of uncertainty can do something like, when a man breaks up with her, she can say, okay, he knows something that I don't know. Like, we're not the right match for each other. There's some more healing I need to do, or there's something else my journey doesn't end here, right? I'm trusting that there's something else for me that's more right for me. And it's a very hard position to take. Of course, it takes healing and effort and constantly working on yourself. And so I think there's so much beauty in that. And I think really there's this, when a woman understands her true beauty and understands that her job, her mission is to play an irreplaceable role in a man's adventure, right? And if a woman actually trusts in God and trusts in the world and the universe and who she is and what she's capable of, why would God pair her up with a man whose adventure is not just the right adventure for her, right? And it's just like this one team, one dream. It's one adventure, and the adventure comes to be because the man goes on his journey to find his purpose and his mission, and that's where he's headed. And he wants to go on this adventure and rescue this great beauty. And then I'm just going to go back to this line because I think it's so important. And then she wants to be romanced, to play that irreplaceable role in that great adventure and to unveil her beauty. Yeah, all of this is kind of like an inside job before it becomes a partnership and a pairing up. But I think there's something really beautiful about this piece of uncertainty. And anticipate that some aspect of our Western culture, there's a huge amount of fear about it. If you listen to Indigenous leaders speak, I listened to Russell Means talk about women and men recently, and he was just talking about, the fear-based Western society and the inability to sit with the unknown. And Richard Rohr is talking about how often even just, parts of different religion can get so caught up in being obsessed with controlling and they forget about spirit altogether. And that's where we go wrong. That's where we start to obsess over the evolutionary psychology of this and that and the science and the intellectualization and the gender wars and all this stuff. And so deep down, there's like a very sacred ancient wisdom that exists about a man and a woman inspiring each other to their greatest selves. So true womanhood is a deep relationship with the unknown, like an intimate relationship with the unknown to the point where your life is about being comfortable with the unknown and telling the truth from that place, letting go of all control and just coercion and control and just anything that wants to find all the answers out so you don't have to trust God and the universe. That's what it is. Because ultimately, if you can't trust, then you can't trust a man. And ultimately, there is no intimacy with a man if he doesn't feel his woman's trust in him every step of the way. So that's a little bit about womanhood. Took a little bite out of that, but we'll keep this conversation going and let me know in the comments any questions y'all have and things that you guys want me to touch on. Would love to do that in the next few episodes. Okay, till the next one. Hello, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy to be here bringing my wisdom, my truths, all the research I do into pop culture and evolutionary psych and beyond to bring men and women the information that we all need to know to find that ultimate harmony with each other. This is the mission. This is why I'm here. This is what I believe in. So if you found value in what I'm doing here, please help me grow the podcast. And you can do one of two things. Either share the episode with a friend or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple. This will help me so much. Until next time.